Thank you so much, James, and thank you, Chris, for inviting me to talk about self-care. Yeah, this is a really important talk to me, and what I'm hoping here, I'm trying to pull up my notes a little bit. What I'm hoping here is that I can give you some kind of tools and some kind of inspiration, maybe a fresh way of looking at your approach to self-care. Chances are, if you're here, you have had some episode of burnout, or maybe actively struggling with an episode of burnout right now. So I'm here to kind of give you some ideas and some approaches that I've learned that have been helpful to me. Um, and yeah, let's keep going. A little bit about me. I have been involved in tech for a very long time, ever since I was in high school, but back and forth, I've forged many paths and have been an entrepreneur, have been an acupuncturist, and now I am a software engineer and I do web development. I work with basically a worldwide tech agency called 100 Devs, and I help people build full stack web applications all over the world. But in a past life, I was an acupuncturist where I also learned to write my own websites and do all the things that go with running a business. And that influenced the first things that I did with web development. So one of my first full stack web apps was a scheduling and records app called Wu Wei, which means practicing without effort. So I'm trying to share all of this self-care to even my clients that I'm working with. And I also have created a community-sourced medicinals API so people can share information about medicinal substances that they use, regardless of the tradition that they're from. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm really passionate about helping people gain a new perspective on how they take care of themselves. And I've had one foot in both worlds, a foot in the complementary and alternative medicine world, and then a foot in just the everyday tech world, and they feel very different. So I feel like I can bring some of my knowledge that I kind of got from there and kind of bring it in here and share it with you guys, and we can all benefit from that. So that is why I'm here. The material in this presentation is for educational and informational purposes only, doesn't constitute medical or mental health advice. I'm just here to kind of share my perspective and what I've learned. And so I'm sharing it with you in kind of the message that it would be like I would share with a friend, or telling you what I would do or what I would tell a family member. And I'm not paid to promote anything, but there's some resources I'll share at the end that do have associated costs. But most of the time, I like to give resources that are free, or at least have a free option. So if you want to check it out, you don't have any risk associated. So don't spend money on anything I share if you don't want to, because there's always going to be a free option. So burnout is a really interesting thing. I see burnout as the point at which the effort required to do something is outweighing our desire to do it. And I have seen, when you look up burnout and Google it or whatever, you see a lot of conversations about it, but most of the things, like the statistics that they associate with it, are polls that they've taken from software engineers that work at companies. So if you see 71% of engineers are experiencing burnout, that is going to be where that data is from. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is more like the average software engineer turnover is around 60%. And then when we get this other information about, hey, people are complaining about burnout. So it hasn't been directly assigned. I think a lot of people are, I think especially people who are involved in it, it matters to them, but it hasn't been studied at the federal level yet that I've seen. So, so here's the deal. If you are experiencing burnout, there's nothing wrong with that. We see that as kind of a natural part of taking on a lot of stress and not necessarily knowing what to do with it. And so everybody makes mistakes and has experiences with burnout. The truth is that recovery just takes longer than prevention. So if you have burnout and you need to recover from it, it might take you several weeks or even months, whereas if you prevent it, you can just keep going for longer. Because I think that the purpose of everybody getting into the careers they want to have like long, successful careers where they feel like their work-life balance is, achieved. So to me, the reasons for burnout would be like you're overstimulated, meaning that you're taking on too many things at once. And our frontal lobes can really only handle between 4 and 6 active things like that they're worried about at once. So we have to take time away from those so that we can create space. So if we've filled up everything, when you feel like overstimulated and you can't handle anymore, you need to like release some of that space. Also, people who don't have enough diffuse time. So to allow developers talk all the time about how when they're sleeping or something, or in the bathroom, I saw a joke that somebody was like sitting on the potty or something, and they had a revelation about what they were doing with their coding. And that's exactly what diffuse time is. So if you don't have that, then you may be pushing too hard and you're not having that integration time that you're needing. And this is all kind of with the lack of self-care. If you're just like, well, we want to say like burning the candle at both ends or something, that's going to cause these two things to happen. You're going to be overstimulated and then not have enough space to give to your brain so that it can function properly. And so it's a very real experience. So a little bit about 100 Devs, because we do talk about self-care at 100 Devs, that it's an inclusive global agency that has a full stack web development training program, which is self-paced. But people tend to spend about 10 to 40 hours per week on just the training program. And a lot of the culture around that kind of training program is a boot camp culture, which means that when we want to learn something, like not just people who are getting into coding, but people who already code, we're pretty aggressive about it. And that, I don't think that changes. So taking that attitude where it's so very aggressive and takes up a lot of time and a lot of mental space, like how to balance everything out. So one of the things we say at 100 Devs is that we want to manage our frustration. We want to be consistent, and we want to take care of ourselves. And I think all of these are interrelated, and it's kind of nebulous. So we're going to be looking at this in much further detail. I saw this Instagram comic that had these cute little drawings, and I've linked the original. So if you, I almost forgot, if you want to go to any of my links, let me pop it in here. I've shared in the chat my presentation, so you can follow along and you can visit any of the links that I have shared. So you can, this link below goes to the original comic, but I just wanted to take a look and see how many different things, there's a wide variety of things that people consider behaviors that are associated with self-care. Everything from just singing to a bubble bath to taking time off from responsibilities. So there's simple and there's really complex, but we consider them all to be self-care related. Going to therapy, medical care, things like that. And I would include that I didn't necessarily see in the list. I would include things like reading. I absolutely include playing video games, as long as you're not stressing your eyes too much, right? And listening to audiobooks, music, things like that. And I saw taking a bath, but even showering can be an excellent form of self-care, kind of like a reset when you need it. And so we're going to set the stage. And before we get to my kind of approach, there's a basic foundation that we have to build. And that foundation comes from the way that our subconscious influences the self-care decisions we make. So there's the neuroscience behind this is kind of it would be about the DMN, which is the DMN is kind of like the default way by which you perceive yourself, or your default attitude toward yourself. And if that default attitude is highly critical or restrictive, then you're not going to be able to achieve your self-care goals from the get-go. So what I suggest, considering the prequel, is something called self-compassion. And a woman named Dr. Susan Neff, she is out of Austin. She developed this concept, and well, she took it from Buddhism and then did a bunch of like biological research on it and the benefits of self-compassion. And she has a whole audiobook. The link below is going to be where you can find that. But this is kind of an overview of her view of self-compassion. So, and I would say like my emphasis for like the basis of self-care would be self-kindness. So taking the time to be as caring toward ourselves as we are toward others is probably like the real game changer when it comes to your self-care strategy. But at the same time, self-compassion by itself could be a lifelong journey. So if that's where you struggle and then you start there, it could changing just that could be the key that you need. It can by itself be something that you study lifelong. So this is how I felt like when I was an acupuncturist and my patients would come and see me, as they would say like, I'm trying acupuncture now and I wanted to fix all my problems. But I would like, of the like 4 legs of this table, I'm like that one wobbly one that it's wobbling on. And so I want to make sure, like, what I took away from all those experiences was that if healthcare is a table on which we're building our lives and our self-care, like this is a table, then a lot of my patients were on their last leg. They didn't have a lot of support in other areas and lean very heavily on the support they could get from me in complementary and alternative medicine. And that meant that oftentimes it didn't work as well or have the results, or they didn't last as long as what that person could have gotten if they had been more balanced in their approach. And in the tech industry, we're very abstracted, and we think of things in multiple levels, and those things are not on a physical level at all. So what's popular, like with us, is a kind of this term body hack or biohacking and things like that, which is the idea that if we know enough about our body, then we can trick it into doing what we want. And that's really popular, but really a more sense of body awareness. Like if we could get into our bodies more and have more of an awareness of what's happening right then, as opposed to that kind of control mentality, then we could have more success. So that's just something that I wanted to bring up that specifically haunts software developers and people in the tech industry. So here's kind of a representation that I came up with of what it is that my patients were doing. And when you make a fundamental change, you're like, today I'm going to couch to 5K, or today I'm going to, do this atomic habit, but that's fine. But keep in mind that everything on top of that tile that she is flipping out of the bottom is like her life. So this is like your kids, your responsibilities, the things you love to do, that you're building on top of that. Your career, is one of those things. But if you have, if it goes wrong, you have all these things tumbling down and you have to take time off or rearrange or rebuild. And it's not as effective or helpful. And it's something I see people doing all the time. Usually by the time they come to me, their Jenga tiles are all over the floor and we're rebuilding. So it can be done. Again, like I think health crises are really helpful ways to like reset yourself and to get your attention. But also, there's another way to do it as well. So my approach has to do with creating a stable, prioritized environment where you're holding your boundaries. So we have 4 pillars. We have 4 things that, so if one of them goes out or something doesn't happen like we needed to, then we can just continue right ahead. So let's talk about what those are. And they are in order of priority as well. And somewhat unfortunately, we'll talk about that. But most important would be primary medical care, then mental health care, then joyful movement, and followed by our habits. So these would be the 4 major things that you would want to look at and make sure that you have a solid access point into, and you're doing what you need to be doing there. So, yeah, primary medical care, it would be nice if like these were the cures that they gave us, but it's not. They're often primary medical care is people's least favorite. The cures are uncomfortable. The news is often bad, but ultimately what we're looking at is that it will save your life. So we're looking at getting screened at the proper times, making sure that for your place in life and what you're going through, that you have adequate support and you're not going, you don't have symptoms or issues that haven't been fully addressed by a medical doctor. And I would say like every 6 months to a year, seeing your doctor and your dentist about the same amount of time is probably a good idea for just maintenance. And I think some people would see like what this doctor is telling another doctor is not something I would expect to hear in the medical environment, but it's not impossible. It just takes something called self-advocacy. So finding a way to get the feedback that you want and to make it functional for your life, even in a medical setting, requires a good degree of self-advocacy. So self-advocacy starts with health and organizational literacy. So knowing what people do and how to navigate the system. And if not knowing yourself, finding someone who does. So I had the privilege of having a lot of biomedical training, so a lot of like general training in how doctors perceive our bodies. So I kind of know what they're going to say, or at least can understand them when they say it. If I didn't have that information, I would need to work harder to say, okay, who do I need to contact so that I can learn more about this, and learning about my own conditions, not everybody's, but just mine, and making decisions based on that. You can expect providers to respond to you with respect. I mean, that's something that people do have concerns about, that providers are not compassionate enough. One of the things that I encourage people to do is seek out a nurse practitioner who may work under your doctor so that you get more like a one-on-one and more compassionate care, but that you still have the oversight of a medical professional. And yeah, I think we're ready to move on to, I'm going as quickly as I can because I know I'm running out of time, but I'm going as quickly as I can. We're going to move on to mental health care, which is the second pillar. And whether or not I think we have some stigmas that are associated with getting proper mental health care. You can have different approaches to mental wellness, but the concept is really about like just evaluating your approach and seeing if it works for you. So you can have episodic experiences with mental health care. So you're going through something, right? You're burned out at work, something like that. You can go and say, look, I only want to come in for X number of treatments. So you don't have to go continuously, but you can also go continuously and choose to participate in that as well. Either way, you're still making up for that pillar. And there's cognitive behavioral therapy, which is very like scientific and very like, you're changing things and looking at the effects of it. But then there's more emotional exploration type therapies, which can be a little bit more fluffy. And I would say more exciting. So also people do prophylactic mental care and look at kind of the high risk situations in their lives. So if you have had a history where you have been at risk, you may continue to be at risk. And so just meeting that with an appropriate response, whether it's checking in every so often or getting regular support. You Are Rad is a nonprofit organization that provides mental health services to anyone, and they will cover their costs if you are in need, including your medication. So it's something that you can spread with your loved ones, but that there are people out there who are wanting to offer this without cost. I was searching around and I found this great guide to stress management from the World Health Organization, and it was developed for people all over the world. So it has guided multilingual audio, and the instruction is teach me like I'm 5. But it has this really great emphasis on values, which is such an important part of mental wellness because it really puts us in touch with our most cherished values, and it supports the development of self-care and additional self-soothing strategies so that people can cope with stress. I happen to be really passionate about awareness of the treatment of eating disorders, and I just wanted to mention about 1 in 10 people in the United States struggle with an eating disorder at some time in their lives. So if you have some concerns about your relationship with food, diet, or nutrition, check out the screening tool in this link because it can help you to kind of assess the degree of the issue and see if you need to seek further assistance. So my favorite section is joyful movement. It increases wellness and prolongs our lives. Every study that I read is repetitive. It's the thing that really makes the difference when it comes to longevity and aging gracefully is going to be joyful movement. And I use joyful movement because exercise sounds like a have to. And I think it's really important to maintain our autonomy, and it's something that we have lost with the culture of exercise. So something that I'd like to share is just the idea. You could call it exercise. You could do it the old-fashioned way for sure. But I'm just kind of bringing a little bit of new sunshine to the topic and thinking about it in a more autonomous spirit. So if you want to check out this link, this is a source that I think is fantastic. All choreographed content that they have is available for free. They have dance playlists that are grouped by your audience, your level of workout, the space you have available if you're just in an apartment or something. And it's like really enjoyable cardio. And I enjoy it because I also get exposure to like fresh music, fun dance moves, and you watch people who are doing it like these girls that are with him right now are his like trained dancers, but he does it with a lot of civilians, and it's really hilarious because I might think I look like him, but I probably look like that guy behind him that looks ridiculous. So it's just lighthearted. This is something that I mention all the time to people. This woman, her name's Adrienne. She lives in Austin. She has a really cool dog, as you can see in this video. And she does these, and has been doing for years, 30-day immersion courses on YouTube for free. You can watch every single video, do one a day. Yoga has been, over every other thing that I've seen, the most impactful and engaging practice that I've seen people do, because you can come back to it year after year and it just keeps giving. And it helps us. Somebody once said that yoga helps us solve what can be solved, but live with the things that can't be solved. So I think that's absolutely true. This is her current yoga journey that I think she just finished because she does it in January of every year. But all of those 30-day challenges, journeys, however you want to see it, are available on YouTube for free. This app has been around for a while. It's a gamification of HIIT training for 7 minutes a day. It has kind of a don't lose your lives, keep going every day kind of a setup to it. And it's free to use as well. I like this app so much that I was willing to give them like $20 a year, because you get like 5 apps that are styled the same, and it's very non-intrusive. It's super independent. And if you decide you want to go with this app, because it has like a HIIT, Pilates, yoga, meditation, all sorts of stuff for like $20 a year, go through their website, because that's the way to get the better price. Otherwise, it's like $50 an app or something ridiculous on Google Play. Okay, so our last bit, and I'm going to rush through it, but it is, because people act like it's the most important, but really it's not as big of a deal as we make out of. Like, what are our habits? What are we doing? Heavily overemphasized. And it has bled into the way that we view every other piece. Like, notice that I'm mostly talking about self-advocacy and trying out new things, and then habits become question that autonomy again. So I wanted to point out that of all behaviors that have an impact on wellness, our exercise is going to have the most impact. So that's joyful movement, right? That's one. Then here on, this is just one diagram, but healthcare is 10%. Genomics is, the state of things, 30%, 20% socioeconomic and environmental factors. So we really, not a whole lot of percent left. And according to current population research, your daily habits have a maximum of maybe like 20% impact on your health. And that may be discouraging, because I guess living in a world where, it feels like we don't have a lot of control, we use habits to make us feel like we are in control again, right? But it's really it's more like it's okay. It's not down to you to do 100% of everything to make your self-care worthwhile, right? Some of that is going to be the water you swim in. But that being said, we're going to go over, and I'm going to blow through just a few options of things that I think are worthwhile things to explore with our habits. People use a sleep calculator to calculate their optimal sleep time so that they're not interrupting REM cycles. So if you're having issues with your sleep and getting enough, feeling like you're rested enough, you may want to play around with this calculator and see if you're going to bed at the right time. If you have habits that are difficult to change and you're not really sure how to approach them, I really like this channel for those kinds of approaches. Let's see. The 3-Day Effect is an Audible original program where a science journalist studied the effects of immersive nature experiences on people with PTSD. So it was really fun to listen to, and I was like, what it opened up my eyes about was the effect that just being in nature can have. So there's just the idea that you're in nature, and that would have a huge effect. So that's definitely worth checking out on Audible. But I also can recommend All Trails, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Or maybe you're less familiar with the Hiking Project, which is owned by REI. And I like the Hiking Project because it's marked like ski slopes, because they've got like difficulty and terrain indicators. And there's always ergonomics. You can't talk about self-care in a developer environment without ergonomics coming up, because it's just an occupational hazard. We've got all these abstractions. We've got lower body awareness, and then we're sitting in these wonky positions. It's going to come up. So rather than really dwelling on it, because I think it's so individual for each person, what I did do was make an Amazon list of like things that I think are relevant, so that you may want to consider like glasses or the standing desks or the ones that go up and down. Or, of course, we could spend an entire 20 minutes talking about ergonomic keyboards. So, but just an idea. If you have been plagued by over dieting or issues with habits surrounding your food, this is a really great option. This woman, Christy Harrison, she offers a free guide to intuitive eating. So if you want to check out, it's like 7 strategies to help maximize your intuitive eating plan or something. That's going to be free. And she also hosts a podcast for free where she talks to lots of dietitians and other care providers. And they're kind of just trying to like loosen the grip that people have on trying to get control of their diet. So very worth listening to. This is a list of links I really wanted to share with you that are people located in Dallas that I would just be interested in as far as I would check out their services. So there's a chiropractic and sports medicine place, a massage place, and then a wellness center. Urban Hippie, I think, started with a chiropractor and they've added on other people as they've gone. There are certain things that you want to look for in these environments. Keep in mind, like, I don't work with these people and I haven't necessarily gone here, but they're places that have caught my attention. Like Beachside Community Acupuncture offers a sliding scale, and the environment is community. So it's really good if you prefer like an open door policy. So you get to come as you are, and you get to get treated in like a recliner or covered chair or something, in just your street clothes. And it's just very casual. So something to consider if you have an aversion to those overly medical environments or you've got white coat syndrome. All right. And then there's those habits that are like the simple things in life, right? The bubble bath, the fresh flowers, and just anything. And notice that what these have in common are the senses. So things that stimulate your senses in that positive way are going to be really great self-soothing strategies to cope with stress, and really great things to just like, we need them as developers so that we can check in regularly with our body. And I love this GIF. All right. I am just about done. Here's my Q&A part, and here's the end. Thank you so much for listening to my talk. I'm super happy to hang out and answer any questions that you have. But otherwise, use the links. Let me know what you think, and follow up.
I've got one out of the gate for you, Dana, which is about, you mentioned the hiking stuff and nature stuff around. And I'm curious, for you within the Metroplex, do you have any go-to hikes or walks you like to do?
I don't have any in the Metroplex. I can look up some though.
No, it's all good. I was just, if you had any off the top of your head that you liked. I'm always looking for new ones.
I don't off the top of my head, but and I haven't lived in the Metroplex for quite a while. But I bet there are some really good ones out there. I think the Master Naturalist group is pretty active up there. And so that might be an interesting group to contact if you're looking for hike ideas, because they know all like the cool secret places.
That's a great call. Yeah. No, I've had a little bit of interaction with the Master Gardeners, which is slightly different. So I'll look up the Naturalist group.
Yeah, check out the Master Naturalist.
Thank you.
Yeah, they have taken me on like several hikes that I would not have known was even there otherwise. So
cool.
Yeah, absolutely. See, I have an answer even if I don't know I have an answer.
I'm curious about the getting time in nature. If you've read anything about like indoor plants and how this is a very specific question, but how that stuff, if it has like a similar effect or if it's like kind of like a sort of.
I feel like there's more of like it just kind of is a more balanced, like oxygenating your environment. My problem, I go back and forth with indoor plants uh, because I don't like bugs. And I
Yeah,
feel
well,
like indoor plants kind of invite that. So if I have like a good bug strategy, then it's absolutely like because like well even like working with plants so, like you have some that you care for that can have a positive effect on your um, it can definitely have an effect for sure. I don't know that it's like exactly the same as being like uh, going rafting for 3 days,
yeah, can't quite
but
do
I
that.
don't know like right.
Well, I've got a good bug strategy, so
Oh yeah, yeah, I think that would like if you and have something that you actually have contact with that you want that you like move around or train or something that you have physical contact with, that's also very helpful. I think like it's the sensory experience of nature.
yeah. I really uh, liked the framing of exercise as joyful movement,
Yeah.
because I think, like, for me personally, I had never kind of put those words together, but like put those concepts together, but that's like kind of how I prefer to approach exercise with like a really
Sure.
gentle, like without going into it without any expectation of like improving myself. Uh,
Yeah. Like
but
spontaneous, there's a spontaneity to it, you know, like, oh, I want to go for this walk, or oh, I feel like doing dancing this dance right now, you know, or whatever it is. I
yeah,
think
just
that's super.
like
You're definitely getting the idea. I'm
well,
glad. I can't believe you've never heard that. That's cool.
yeah. I mean, it reminded me of this podcast I listened to. It was an interview of this 80-year-old guy who had just run his first 100K, and he so it took him 12 hours or something, and he had the way he talked about running was very framed that way, that it was just a joy to be able to do. And but
Yeah.
a question. I should have a question. When you're looking for resources, say like acupuncture or therapy, or is there what are some kind of ways that you can know that what are things that you look for that you know that you're getting good care?
But how do I know I'm getting good care? Is that what you're kind of
Or like
asking?
what kind of signals and yeah, and what kind of like what are you looking for that tells you like, oh, I think this place will be a good place, or when you get there that you know that it's a good place?
Well, it's interesting because I think rarely one interesting thing is rarely is a place be gonna last our whole life, right? Uh, I wish, but so what I've noticed is it hasn't been always, but when it's right for me right then, I walk in and I literally feel like at home. I feel comfortable and relaxed. I don't feel stressed. Um, if I do have undergo any stress, like I've arrived late or I'm rushed or something, those people don't like. I notice that it's not added to or increased. You know, It's hard to put in kind of that framework, but I can tell when I'm interfacing with people that uh, if they respect um, like if they're more talking to me or listening to me, or if they're telling me what they know, which is a different thing.
Hmm.
So that's when I usually know. I'll usually end up saying something like, because we all have places like that we're working, things that we're working on. So if we admit and have that vulnerability, like, I've always wanted to be able to do X, and I haven't ever been able to achieve that goal or something, right? Somebody who will be compassionate about that and like support you versus, oh, well, you just need to do this, which would be the faster, just be quiet response. So, so that's kind of what I look for.
Okay.
I've thought about distilling it into a slide, but it doesn't work. It's too.
It's the developer impulse to what's the input that gets the output. um,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you can tell by the quality of the interaction, and it stinks because I've had enough interactions to know the difference. So it's kind of actually it's also like I consider my BS meter to be pretty high. So I can always tell like when an article is really an ad or something like that. And I have a lot of distrust for those things. So as I've had more experiences with people who've had different goals in their practices, then I've been able to tell what they were going for. But usually, if their goal is just to help, I can usually I can usually benefit from the session. But if they're telling me that I need to redefine my definition of exercise, or I need to go on this diet because this won't work without it, or I need to take their supplement that they're selling, or you know what I mean, go on this exercise regimen, then it's not going to be very fruitful. Even if I really believed them and I really tried, like I could really um, try to change everything. But 6 months, I'd probably be more either worse off or back where I started.
yeah.
But and then if you feel that way with somebody, usually especially for like acupuncture and things like that, the sessions are more effective because you trust them because you're not sniffing out their BS.
Yeah, you're kind of letting the medicine work. It,
Yeah.
I'm reminded of uh, I can't remember his name right now, but a like functional medicine guy. I'm gonna out myself. Andrew Weil, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Talking about how these studies of medicines and things look for uh, they say, oh, well, that's just the placebo effect. And he's like, but I want to know how to get my body to, that's their body fixing itself, like by
Hmm.
just like mental. But
Right. And I think one of my professors said you want to minimize placebo effect in a research setting. But in the clinical setting, you want to maximize that
yeah, ooh, I like that.
because you want it to employ it as much as possible. Why not?
Right.
The
Right.
patient getting better, you're not like, oh, you can only get better from from what I do here.
Yeah.
So,
You've got some really great things that you shared. So I was wondering, you shared a number of different types of behaviors that could help. If somebody was just going to do one or two, what are the most important ones?
um, so the most important thing I would say would be um, to focus on the primary care and then the mental health care and then the joyful movement. So anything I listed under joyful movement will come first. If it's like a habit or something. And then in the habits, I'm like, what did I say? Is that in order? They kind of are. Yeah, moving in nature. So like, because it's kind of tough to answer because I shared that one video from Kurzgesagt on how to change. And the reason I shared this video is because I was trying to figure out how to take my medication properly. I kept forgetting, which I think is a common problem that, I'm not alone. So what I decided to do was I watched this video and they reminded me that sometimes you need some kind of association to remember to do something. So I put my medication beside my contacts. So whenever I get up in the morning in my contacts, I'm doing those two things at the same time. So it's not really that important as a habit or whatever, but it really helped with me following through with my medical care. So in that sense, it gets elevated to being a really helpful thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I would say anything that involves movement would probably be on my top tier of priorities because that seems to be the most helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.